What's up, people? Welcome to ZeldaSpeedRuns and welcome to the Minish present tournament of 2024. We are in lower semi-final, so we're getting close-ish to the final stage of the tournament. We have Seceon going up against Nitros, and without further ado, let's dive into the action live on Restream together with Myth and Drak. Take it away. Drakus, take it away.
Hey Drake, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. We're getting really close to the end of the tournament now. There's only a couple races left. What we got? We got lower semi-final now.
Mm-hmm.
We got the upper final on Sunday, and so we're basically in top four. It'll be grand finals before we know it.
It will be, and I, for one, cannot wait. We do have an exciting match going on today. We have Nitros and Seceon, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that.
Seceon.
Seceon? Okay. Got it. But it's going to be an awesome match. Two very high ranked players putting out some fantastic performances throughout the tournament. This is going to be a really good one today, for sure. Right now we got our runners setting everything up, making sure their save files are ready to go.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple new, well, I say a couple, but I guess there's really just the one little update in some strategies with OctoClip that you were so kind to help develop for us. So I'm curious to see if either of the runners use that new OctoClip strategy or if we've got the original.
They've got to. Like, it's so free.
It's so easy. Like, the previous setup, I'd think so hard the entire time and not ever really know if I was in the right, like, subpixel position. But with this one, I could do it without paying attention. I don't have to look at my screen, and as long as I get the roll timing right, I'm fine. So, we're going to see what happens, and I'm excited for it. A lot of excitement in the chat as well. Looks like everybody's ready for this today.
Yeah, I don't think it's super common that, like, new strats get discovered in the middle of, like, a tournament. I'm not sure about other Zelda tournaments, but I would say it's pretty rare. I mean, I guess it's not unexpected because everyone's excited about the tournament stuff. Everyone's practicing, grinding the game. There's more eyes on the game during a tournament period, so more people are going to be willing to, like, try out new strats and stuff. And yeah, honestly, I feel a little bit bad about this because this is a setup that I swear I tried like 4 months ago and didn't work. I
mean, that's the nature of OctoClip, though.
Yeah.
We don't think it works, but it will. You just have to find that perfect timing. Yeah, our runners are off, though, and we're in the middle of that intro sequence. And even just right off the bat, there's a couple things to just kind of go over. First off, so if you're familiar with speedrunning, you've probably heard the term of an RNG manip, or randomness manipulation, right? Where we essentially want the game to give us something or do something, and we will do very specific actions to make that happen. And so at the very beginning of the run here, we're going to need some money later, right? So we're going to steal $20 from our grandpa, which is a normal thing to do for any child leaving into the world. And then there's also going to be $5 in a pot that we get by going through very specific movement. By doing 2 rolls in a room is going to get us a blue rupee in that bottom pot. So right out the gate is the very first trick of the run.
Fun fact, every time the smith hits the hammer and makes the sound effect, it rolls RNG.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. every time Link rolls or does a sword slash or like a bunch of other things happen, it rolls RNG because it rolls RNG whenever it has like various different options of what to do and wants to pick through one of them. And for all of these things, it's always the sound effect. Link has different rolling sound effects and different sword slashing sound effects, and the hammer blow from the smith has different sound effects. So it just chooses between them by rolling RNG and picking the next one in the list.
That's fascinating. I'm learning new stuff every day. I've been doing Minish Cap for a very long time, and yet here I am, learning new random things. Both players did get their 5 rupees, so we're good to go. Continuing out into the world, having ourselves a little party. There's going to be, for the first, 2 dungeons of this game, it's going to be just pure execution. It's going to look a lot like a normal playthrough of the game, but fast. The category really picks up right after that second dungeon, and that's when reality really falls apart. So be excited for that, and look forward to just watching 2 players who have honed this down to a craft really just tear this game apart.
Yeah, despite it looking like typical, like a typical playthrough or whatever, it doesn't mean that, that it's not extremely optimized. Every single room, you just grind to get that, to figure out the absolute perfect line, and hone your muscle memory to be able to do these rooms as fast as possible. Like, there is time save available in every single inch of this game. Like, yeah, sure, the first major glitch is going to be done at about 31 minutes into the run. And that's a third of the way through the time element of the whole run. That there is so much gameplay done in this first third that has to be optimized and can't really be ignored just because, oh, we need to practice the big scary tricks later on. You do really see that with the absolute top runners. They're able to consistently get extremely fast times out of the first dungeon, when really in isolation, every single thing, there isn't really that much in it. It's just that sum total of optimization across every single room.
Exactly. And for me personally, when it comes to the first 30 minutes of the run, is there's so many enemies to have to dodge and roll around that we kind of skip over a lot of them later in the run. So in the beginning, like Mount Cranel, covered in enemies, Deepwood Shrine, full of slugs, having to adapt to those enemy locations and how they're moving and attacking, to not get stuck on them or take too much damage and, unfortunately sometimes die, is really difficult. So you got to make sure you're keeping an eye on the first 30 minutes of the run so that you're not getting, lazy or complacent and taking that sizable time loss. Both runners right now showing their consistency, being pretty much, if not frame perfect here. We are right on time with each other, getting out of the intro of the game. And to catch everybody up on the story right now, Vadi, evil, bad, scary-looking guy, won a sword competition in order to free some ancient treasure from a box, but it just turned out to be a bunch of monsters, which I think is relatable in all of our lives. And so now we are tasked to repair the legendary sword that Vadi broke, in order to use it to destroy him and save the world.
Right, so we got the first major movement section of the run. We're going to be heading to the first dungeon. And as you were talking about with the enemy RNG, it's going to be a lot of enemy RNG in this section. Runners are going to have to be keeping an eye on all of these enemies, like these octos. They're making sure that the position's good for them to roll through. Some of these enemies are in not great positions, but they're making good judgment calls and managing to roll through these enemies without taking any damage whatsoever. Okay, Seceon gets hit by one of those acro bandits. Getting hit by one enemy is pretty typical.
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, there's so many enemies. Getting through this whole section without taking any damage is really impressive and a little lucky. There's definitely some luck to it. It's not all skill.
Oh yeah, a lot of it is just like that snap reaction of you have to make a decision. Do you take the damage to try and get like through as quickly as possible, or do you try and preserve your health and you might not be going through as quickly as you would like? You might not be taking the most optimal line. So like despite Seceon like getting hit, I think overall he did do that section faster than Nitros, because Nitros had to take a little bit more of that avoiding action to maintain their health.
All right, so we have our resident mentor character. This is Eslo the Hat. He does not do anything in this game aside from pushing us a little bit when we are rolling away from him, and also has this quirky ability to sing on a stump and make us tiny. This is going to have a lot of great benefits, including getting into a lot of locations that we wouldn't otherwise be able to, as well as having access to various towns and settlements that are going to be required.
Right, there is a trick here that I think Nitros was going for, but they made too many mistakes for this to work. There is the possibility of landing on that lily pad one cycle early. We have seen it in a race this tournament so far. I believe it was Darky. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Darky that got the that got this in an actual race. But yeah, it requires extremely precise movement from the moment you finish talking to Eslo after shrinking. Some of the rolls are basically frame perfect, and yeah, there is some movement that you have to do very close and tight to some walls, and if you rush against the walls, but like even for a single frame, it messes up the setup and it doesn't work.
Another thing that makes that setup tricky as well is so we get very used to our roll timing, right? We're doing it the entire run, everywhere we go we're rolling, but when you are shrunk down on the overworld and you're that little like 4-pixel box, the roll timing is ever so slightly different. So we get so used to this roll timing that a lot of runners don't get as much practice optimizing those little Minish rolls, and it makes that setup a lot.
The time difference is about 3 frames. A regular sized roll is 28 frames, and when your Minish size is 25, so it is almost nothing. But there are 6. I think it's 6 rolls in that section that you need to time, and 3 frames will add up to make it not work. I think you have like 3 or 4 frames of leniency when it comes to that trick, so it's not like perfectly frame perfect, but some of your inputs will have to be frame perfect in order to just hit the window. And yeah, if you're consistently 3 frames off, you're never going to be hitting it.
Absolutely, and just to give a little bit of context, so Minish Cap is a 60 frame per second game. So if we're saying like 3 frames, that's about a 20th of a second, if I'm doing my math right in my head.
Yeah.
So very tiny amount of time, but it really does add up for that specific trick. It's that precise to be able to hit it. So now we're in the first dungeon of the game, Deepward Shrine. A lot of mushroom guys to avoid, a lot of those slugs that we mentioned. It's just trying to avoid taking that extra damage. There are a couple of points in this dungeon. We just saw it on Nitros' screen that getting bumped by that mushroom kind of lined up his rolls a little bit better, just to clean up that movement. And sometimes you get lucky like that, but you just got to be careful because you only have 3 hearts and you can lose them really fast in this game.
Yeah, that spot's pretty, I wouldn't say like consistent, but pretty common that you do get a damage boost on there, because enemies spawn at exactly the same position every time you load into a room, but RNG decides which direction they start to move in. And yeah, the puff stool basically has 4 different directions that it can move, so I don't know if it works if it goes in like two different directions, but at least one of the directions definitely works. So, you know, it's somewhere between a quarter and half the time you're going to be getting that damage boost. And yeah, damage boosts are pretty good. Link does get sent flying with a decent amount of speed, so you see the task does damage boost whenever possible. The task treats having health as a currency, and very much as a player playing this game, you treat your health as a currency. You hand it in to get time save, but you can't overexpend it, otherwise you'll die. And yeah, sometimes you want that buffer of health so that when you're going through a slightly more difficult section, you don't have that risk of dying. And especially if you want to be playing it more safe, you're going to want to build up a bigger buffer of how much health you have. Whereas if you're really pushing for like a fast time, you have to be allowing yourself to get onto lower health and not going out of your way to get health. It's actually an extremely important like concept in the glitchless category. In any percent, we're paying a lot of attention to our health in the first 30 minutes of the run, but then we kind of stop caring too much, especially after we get Boomerang, because like if you get too low on health, it's like, well, there are plenty of these sparks around that we can use to just full heal and collect fairies. And healing is an extremely easy thing that we can do in the any percent route. But when it comes to glitchless, health refills are few and far between, and there's a lot more enemy fights, so you do have to be super careful. Speaking of enemy fights...
First mini-boss. So this is Matterpillar. Matterpillar is can be a very fast boss, but sometimes his movement can be really unfortunate, and he'll kind of bounce you around a bit. And you might get into like 3 cycles where he runs around, you have to wait for him, and that can really eat out some time. Both players, though, did get a 2-cycle Matterpillar and were able to get out pretty quick. And now we're moving into many players, or at least some players' least favorite mechanic in the game. I can't stand it. This is a lily pad. This is a momentum-based mechanic, using the air puffing out of the gust jar to launch yourself in different directions. So it's kind of like walking backwards, but also bad. And we're going to use this to just kind of float ourselves across the water to get ourselves a key in order to work our way towards the big key and then the end of the dungeon. So we're having to be careful of these flies everywhere who are going to try to knock us off, as well as just trying to manage this lily pad to go as fast as we can. One movement tech that players can use is, since it's a momentum-based mechanic, we are able to kind of use that to our advantage, kind of slide around corners in a way that doesn't seem totally normal. And we're able to also kind of push it diagonally. So if you do a couple of puffs in one direction and then turn 90 degrees and do another puff, seeing on NitrozSR's screen right now, it almost looks like the lily pad gets a little speed boost, because that diagonal movement just shoves it a little bit faster. Both players, though, seem to be getting through this lily pad section without much difficulty. So we're doing great over here. Nitroz collecting that big key, heading to the first boss fight of the game. And Seceon right behind him.
Yeah, the lily pad section is really brutal. It's such like a pace killer as well. When you're feeling like solid, you're doing like a really cool solid deepwood, and then you kind of just have to drop down into the basement and do this section where it's just a different game. You're suddenly playing a different game, and it's you're just having to count your dust blasts, and then sure, the enemy's still gonna get in the way, and the enemy RNG is rancid. It's real awful. Bad down there. They hit you off the lily pad all the time and completely kill your momentum. But we have the first dungeon boss coming up. This is Green Shoe. It's a pretty simple boss. It's just going to be a 3-cycle. Just need to use a gust jar on it to make it vulnerable until its head wobbles to the ground. Yeah. They just need to make sure that they do enough hits of damage to progress it to the next cycle. It just has it only has health for that cycle, and it's specifically a hit counter as well. The amount of time it spends on the ground isn't related at all to how much health it has. It just picks a fixed amount of time to spend on the ground and stays for that long. But that amount is random. And just pure to RNG, like you can lose like 3 seconds in this fight, kind of outside of your control. What Nitro's got at the end there was the final cycle is, and Seceon as well, both
Nice.
got the good RNG where the Chew just jumps once and then starts charging you, and you have a maximum amount of time to just use the Gust Jar to make him vulnerable. If you get bad RNG, it jumps 5 times. And from the analysis I did, the 1 jump was a 1 in 4 chance. It was a 25% chance of happening, and the 5 jump is a 75% chance. So both of them managed to get pretty decent luck there.
This is fantastic. It's really awesome to see these two runners, top of their game, being almost neck and neck coming out of the first dungeon. There's still so much that can happen in the next hour and 15 minutes, and it's really great to see these players so close together at this point.
Yeah.
Another thing you might notice is both players did pick up the heart container. For those of you who have been familiar with maybe a lot of other Legend of Zelda speedruns, is heart containers are just seen as a free way to waste time. But in Minish Cap, we pick them up. There's a lot of situations where we're rolling through enemies, damage boosting for speed, or just it's not easy to avoid some of those enemies. So having that little extra health is very important. We may not pick up every single heart container, but we do at least pick up the first couple of ones.
Yeah, the final boss in this game is no joke. Anyone who's played this understands the frustration that Vati brings.
Especially that second
dying for speedrunners, dying in Vati is a possible outcome. So you do want to mitigate that as much as possible. So yeah, it's extremely uncommon to see people skipping heart containers that the route doesn't require us to skip, because there is one heart container that we are going to skip in the run, and that's the one after Mazal. But that is because we're going to do a death abuse almost immediately after that, so healing up to full health to then immediately damage down to low health is a much bigger waste of time. And missing only one heart container means that you go from 8 health to 7 health, which is, in overall terms, at the very end of the run, it's not that huge of a difference. But yeah, you wouldn't want to be skipping many more heart containers after that.
Absolutely. Really quick shout out to a little strat that both of the runners just did. So for those who have played Minish Cap and are familiar with it, with the whole Kinstone side quest, you're essentially fusing these halves of stones with other people who have other halves of stones to make magical things happen in the world, and that was kind of the tutorial to that system. And normally he would give you the blue Kinstone, and then you'd be able to use it and trade it, and it's a great introduction. But you can just save and quit, and then he vanishes from existence, and it's awesome. Seceon now, and on Nitro's stream just a moment ago, we are going to do guard skip. So this game tracks how you respawn from falling into water and other hazards by looking at safe tiles, essentially is what I call them. And so there's a safe tile right in front of that sign that Seceon walked in front of, but there's not safe tiles in the middle of that pathway. So by using specific movement and kind of going diagonal down into the water without getting on top of the bridge, the game thinks that the last safe tile you were standing on was right next to the guard, which lets you skip right past him without having to prove to him that you can do the spin attack. We did still get the spin attack, because that is required for dozens of times throughout the run, but it's just free time save to skip the guard without having to do the whole spin attack demonstration.
Yeah, honestly, this game is an extremely well put together game. There are not that many exploits, but yes, it's not a perfect game, and the developers do make some questionable decisions sometimes. It's like, why did they do this? And it's like, well, I guess we get to make use of this. And yeah, for in that case, one of the questionable things they did was why is the road tiles not counting as safe tiles? Don't really have an answer for that question, but we make use of it anyway.
We'll make use of anything we possibly can for whatever our purposes may require. So now in Mount Krenel. Mount Krenel is a really scary place for runners, I would say even all the way up the ladder. There's so many enemies here. These ladybugs are all over the place. Tektites can be unpredictable. You only have so many bombs, and you only have a leeway of about 2 bombs. So if you mess up on a bomb use twice, then you're running out of bombs and you're going to be in some trouble. Additionally, we've got this green liquid that we pulled out, this Krenel mineral water. If you accidentally dump that out, you lose about a minute having to go back and get some more. So, gotta be careful with it to use that later on the mountain. But this is a gauntlet.
Another thing that they're having to pay attention to in this section is they're using a lot of bombs. And we basically use up almost all of our bombs in this section, but we do have 1 spare that we can use. But if you waste more than 1 bomb, if you waste 2 bombs, it's then going to start having impacts on the route, and you're going to have to rely on getting a bomb drop. There are no guaranteed bomb drops that are on the way in this section, so you do have to rely on RNG. There are a few things that we break intentionally, and they can give us bomb drops. Like when Nitros gets to the top of this climbing thing, they're going to grab a mushroom with their gust jar, and they grab and throw a rock. Sometimes that can drop a bomb. It has a pretty big chance. They didn't get it there. But when they go to get the grip ring in the upcoming cave, that cave has an extremely high drop rate, so you can break the grass in there, and you're almost guaranteed to get a bomb drop from at least one of the bits of grass. Seceon missed one of their bomb uses earlier, so they are 1 bomb down. Which is fine for them at the currently, but yeah, they just don't want to misplace another bomb.
Additionally, as a neat little tidbit, that mushroom that both players grabbed to get up that cliff, it appeared to be higher in the world than they were actually standing, so it almost looked like they were grabbing the mushroom through a wall. And the way that a lot of these top-down games do height is through layers. Now, a lot of areas on Mount Krenel, even though it looks like some areas are higher in elevation than others, they're actually on the same layer. And Myth, you can keep me honest on this if I'm way off track. But right. The mushroom and where you're standing is on the same layer, so you're able to use the gust jar to just grab them.
Yeah, so that trick is allowed in the glitchless category. It's not classified as a glitch. Might look like one, but it's something completely typical and expected, and something that the developers kind of intend for you to do.
And now we're in a block pushing puzzle, everyone's favorite. This one, it's really easy, but even particularly for me, it's super stressful, because if you push that block wrong and you get it stuck on one of the corners, it's so long you have to go all the way back up to the little Minish rock and shrink back down to reset the whole puzzle. And even though I've done it a billion times, that anxiety is never gonna go away. Of I'm gonna push this wrong and mess it up, I have to restart the whole thing.
Also, during this section, it's a bit we're kind of done with the heavy RNG section and heavy enemy section of Krenel, and you kind of take stock of how much health you have, and then start making the choice of at the beginning of the next dungeon, there's a bunch of pots that we can use to heal. Is it worth us healing at this point? Nitroz's health is great. They've not taken anywhere near as much damage as you'd typically do in Krenels, so they may just decide to completely opt out from getting the health and continue on with the dungeon. Seceon is on that amount of health that I would make the decision to heal up. You can get 2 pots of which have 1 heart each, so you can get 2 hearts pretty quickly at the beginning of the dungeon, and that would heal them up to full exactly, which is just a good cost. Good bang for your buck in terms of like time expenditure for safety.
Absolutely. I mean, it's especially in a race, but I would say even in like if I'm going for a new best time, if I'm looking at Seceon's health, I would take the health, even if I'm pushing a new PB.
Yeah, it's still early. There's so much stuff later on in the run. You just want to not let little mistakes early on get in your way.
Absolutely. And we are getting up to the very top of the mountain here, where we're going to deliver our broken sword to this blacksmith. And he tells us that we need to get the rest of the elements, and while he can't actually put the elements into the sword, he can at least put the sword back together into one piece. So he's going to work on that while we're busy fighting monsters and doing other hero-related activities. And then Cave of Flames is our second dungeon, and this dungeon is going to introduce some pretty major tricks and glitches, some of my personal favorites. So it's gonna be great.
Nitroz is on an absolutely wild pace right now. I think they had a 28. I thought I looked at it like a 19 or 28:20 enter time, and that's absolutely nuts. Like that's within 5 seconds of world record.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And coming up here in just a second, we're going to have the first guaranteed bomb drop of the run, so this kind of restocks us from all of the bombs that we used on the mountain. And now we'll see if the RNG is nice to our runners today, to see if we can get all 3 of them lined up. Nitroz look like they were positioned a little low, so they're having to kind of do some backup strats and try to clear this room as fast as they can. So this might be an opportunity for Seceon to kind of close this gap a little bit. We'll see if what kind of luck they get with the RNG.
Yeah, it looks like a much better fight for Seceon. Still not like one of those perfect fights that you can get. They've only got 2 of the Helmosaurs to come and clump together. At best, you can get 3. For the TAS, we were looking so hard to try and find like a 4, but the TAS even just decided to opt for a completely different strat, where they just do a bunch of roll-ups and place bombs down, and the bombs explode and kill them super fast. It's not something that's humanly viable in any sense.
Nitroz showing off a little bit, just standing on air.
Oh yeah, there's an alignment that people do to make sure that they're on the pixel on the edge of the thing, so you can step off of it as quickly as possible.
Nice. Flashy and time saving.
Yeah, if you've got a downtime section where you're having to wait, then you might as well do whatever you can to save time. But we do have the first glitch of the run coming up. This is angle retention. Jumping out of a hole in a diagonal direction gives Link this erroneous diagonal facing value that shouldn't occur, and objects assume that Link can only be facing in cardinal directions, not in a diagonal direction. So the pulling mechanics get really broken when we're pulling things diagonally, and yeah, collision checks don't work, and we can pull things diagonally. We pull this pillar diagonally out of bounds on top of the loading zone for the next room, and just completely delete it so that we can go out of bounds ourselves. And yeah, that helps skip one of the locked doors and maintain the key that we've got. So it skips a bunch of backtracking sections in this section of the dungeon. So we can skip directly to the mini boss fight, grab our pain, and head immediately down into the basement.
Nitrons, we saw, also got that first cycle, super clean kill. Seceon going into that fight right now. We'll see if he gets that good cycle as well. Fingers crossed. Okay, missed the bottom one. We'll see if they get the backup. Spin attack. Just about. They were almost able to clean it up. Still not a bad fight. I wouldn't feel too bad about that when they were able to clean it up pretty quick.
Yeah, that is a pretty tricky fight to absolutely nail perfectly, but like you can get reasonable fights quite consistently.
Alright, so now we're going to be getting into another example of angle retention that we're going to use to skip basically the entire rest of the dungeon. This includes a big key skip. So we're not having to go and find that big key. We don't care about it. So we're going to put this bug in a wall, as all bugs deserve to be. We're going to put that bug in a hole where that particular one deserves to be, and do one of those diagonal movements out of that hole to pull this pillar over here and line it up against the wall. And then there's another conveniently placed hole that we can go diagonally out of to put the pillar in the wall. And by grabbing the pillar, it pushes us into the little beetle, which damages us up through the ceiling into the next room. And we can just walk on top of the next room of the dungeon to just skip that boss door. And you saw as well that Nitros picked up a fairy out of the pot. That's not just for safety, that's actually required for the death abuse that Myth mentioned earlier. We'll be using that to die and come back for various benefits. And now we're getting into the second boss fight, Gleerock.
Yeah, Gleerock's a pretty, very similar to the first boss, where it's very straightforward. It's just another 3-cycle fight, as is typical of Zelda games. Yeah, Gleerock just has a hit counter we pay attention to. Oh no!
Seceon accidentally sword swiped the first fairy, and then just could not get the spacing on the second fairy, and it just snuck in and got him. So Seceon's now going to have to find a backup fairy.
Yeah, it's really important that they have a fairy after this fight, because that fairy is a multi-use fairy. We're going to use it in like half an hour for a death abuse, but we need to use it immediately after this fight to get bottle invulnerability. We need something in a bottle, and they don't have anything in their bottle right now.
The only thing available to put into the bottle right now is a fairy.
Yeah, they are gonna have to climb down the mountain and go to the fairy cave that they opened at the beginning of Krenel. That's the closest fairy.
So that's going to be a big time loss. So I think the fastest way to do it would be saving at the top of the mountain, going all the way down to get the fairy, and then do like a save and quit. And that should bring you back up to the top of the mountain?
Yeah, you can just save and quit after you get the fairy, and you'll just respawn out from the last area that you entered. So we just entered Malari's Mines, and it will respawn you there, so then you would just grow and then jump back down to begin doing the trick. But it's going to be a big time loss. I've not measured this, but I would expect it's like 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah.
If that.
So we'll be able
maybe closer to a minute.
Yeah, so we'll be able to see right now. So Nitros right now going into the trick that we were just talking about, getting bottle invincibility, where we kind of show the fairy to the sign, and then actually read the sign with the A button. And that makes it to where these enemies don't really hit us. And now we're going to be kind of escorting Greg the Rock Beetle to line him up on that that little spot, getting us a very specific positioning, and that's going to kind of shove us off. So there's a few more things at play there, where we're pushing up against Greg the Rock Beetle, and that sets up our push value. So it kind of counts up. Once it hits a certain value, it actually pushes the item we're up against, but we don't actually finish that push. We store the value by holding out our sword, and that value is the same one that determines like us jumping off of a cliff. So when Greg the Rock Beetle comes over and plops down right next to us, it kind of finishes that little push and shoves us off the edge. And that's how we're able to...
Seceon's opting to go for a slightly different cave here. Yeah, it's really awkward routing from here, because, yeah, sure, you don't have to go an extra screen down, but you do have to still climb up these, like, rock walls. But yeah, they're gonna head over to the, get Bottle Invulnerability, and they're gonna continue doing the trick as well.
Yep. So if you didn't see on Nitro's screen, you're going to see on Seceon's screen in just a second here. And getting pushed out of bounds lets us kind of roll down the rest of the mountain.
Okay, Seceon killed the sign, which is very scary. If you ever mess this up, you need to get Bottom Invulnerability again off of the sign, but because they just killed the sign, they've got one shot at this.
So we'll see if it works. Please, Greg, push him off the mountain. Right. Yeah! Okay. Seceon's still in business.
Yeah.
So now they're rolling down the mountain, and then they're going to exit out. And I cannot remember what the name of the region is. Trilby Highlands. But they're exiting on the Trilby Highlands, kind of in where the trees are. And this lets you skip not only a lot of movement, but also it skips having to fuse the elements into the sword to get your copy ability, and it skips a cutscene that sets certain story flags. So this is, when you look at this and you see Seceon missing out on the fairies and thinking, man, wouldn't it just be better to just play the game and not have to go through all the back and forth? But really, that glitch does so much and saves so much time that it really can't just be skipped and ignored. That we have to go back and get it. And now we're on our little mini quest here to wake up the cobbler so that he can finish our pair of Pegasus boots, which is our running shoes. Pretty major form of speed, as well as changing RNG for upcoming RNG manipulations.
Yeah, we're really eager to get our boots as early as possible. Unfortunately, we would be getting the boots before the dungeon we just did, if we could, because it speeds up everything. Boots go fast. The only thing that stops us from going and getting the boots early is having the cane, and because the cane is in the middle of the dungeon, it's kind of no benefit to getting the cane, then leaving the dungeon and continuing and going getting the boots, and then going all the way back and then finishing the dungeon. Even if we decide to just delay doing the dungeon until, once we have the boots, then we can just go to Swamp and we can go get our bow, we get the mitts, get the ocarina. We could backtrack with the ocarina to go to Cave of Flames and then finish that off later. It's just not faster.
I wish it was. That sounds so cool.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it might not have been the easiest thing to follow for a lot of our viewers, but for me, my brain was ticking. And that sounds cool. But yeah, it's a lot.
The only downside is you have to use Smith's Sword for things like the Dark Note fight and against Mazao as well. So there's a little bit of time lost that you're getting there, like 10-15 seconds at most. which just makes it not worthwhile. But we could also do some very cool stuff in Cave of Flames with the Ocarina, because Ocarina's broken.
It sure is. And we're going to get into that for sure. So now we are in the swamp. And this place is the beginning of the section of the game that I like to call Heck and High Water. Heck and Black Magic, actually. Where everything's a mess, and it's really bad, and I hate it. But in reality, this is where we do a lot of RNG manipulations. So we need the game to give us kinstones. Green kinstones and a red kinstone. We also need, at various points, we need enemies to go exactly where we want them, when we want them to. So we do a save and quit, and we're doing very specific movement to make the game put everything where we want it. So Nitroz right now doing these specific rolls and boot dashes to get these green kinstones out of seemingly random spots.
Yeah, they're having to pay attention to the kinstone sparkle, and the sparkle pattern looks good, and they have the P-hat in a good position. This is an extremely difficult manipulation, and they nailed it first time.
Yeah, that was incredibly clean. So I'm personally more experienced with the cave manip, where I get 3. Did Nitroz get 2 kinstones here?
They got 2 kinstones, so they're going to have to do an extra manipulation in swamp in the next dungeon to get enough kinstones. The P-hat is
not
the
cooperating.
visual cue was not looking good. It's not looking good here. Yeah, they keep getting it pushed onto the wrong starting position. It's 1 pixel too high here, but they did manage to get it.
Wow. So getting that P-hat in the right position allows you to kind of nudge yourself onto a layer higher than just about everything else on the map, which lets you skip getting all of the golden kinstones, that entire like gauntlet trial place. It's so much time saved right there in that one trick. It was a monumentous discovery when it happened. And then continuing the Heck and Black Magic section of this run is you get into Fortress of Winds and immediately save and quit because you're going into another RNG minute. So every little bit of movement that Nitroz is doing right now, every roll, pot throw, enemy kill, is to set up the RNG for the Armos at the end of this gauntlet of movement.
Yeah.
So
RNG
this is lever clip.
Oh no!
Oh no!
The skull
rolled up too early and picked up that skull on accident. So we get to see him trying it again to get this Armos to kind of push us into the deactivated Armos right next to him, so that we're able to grab the lever and pull it out without having to do a bunch of other back and forth.
Yeah, just quickly on Seceon's side, they did do the cave triple manipulation, which gets them an extra kinstone. We're going to need 4 in total. Nitroz only has 2. Seceon has a little bit of an advantage by doing 3 here, so they're not going to have to do as many in the upcoming dungeon. And yeah, they're going to be doing the same P-hat clip now.
So we'll see if they get some better luck with getting that P-hat into the right position to be able to clip out right away. We'll
see. So
see.
the P-hat has its own sub-pixel value, and
Of course it does.
when we shift and move it, it never moves a consistent... Well, it does actually move a consistent amount of sub-pixels, but that doesn't ever equate to it landing on the same pixel every time. Because its starting position is never like perfectly known and consistent, so we can like line up with something that we think might be good, and then try and move it into the right spot, and then it doesn't land on the pixel that we're expecting, and then because it's not in the final position that we want it to be, we can't do the clip that we want, which just makes the P-hat clip inherently luck-based.
And continuing the RNG manip fun, so over on Nitroz's screen, after they got lever clip, you would think that completing the clip, getting the key, that would be the end of it, but it's not. The RNG manip continues from that point in order to get a consistent fight and a kinstone from that Dark Nut fight. So they were able to continue the consistent movement to keep that all together. And I didn't see it. Did Nitros get a red or a green kinstone from that?
They
fight?
got a
'Cause I
green.
believe
They
it was a
have
nip.
all 4 of their green kinstones now. But they are going to, after this save and quit, they're going to be going out of their way to get a chest with a red kinstone in it.
In yet another RNG manip, back to back to back to back to back. So this RNG manip, including getting that red kinstone that Myth was just talking about, but now to get the Armos in this next room, the same one as before, to move in a specific way to kind of shove us through a corner. Now this isn't the only time that we're going to shove ourselves through one of those little corner holes, so keep an eye on that for when we get into Temple of Droplets. And then we use pedestal items, which is using an item at the same time as getting on top of a pedestal, and using the mitts kind of clinks us upward, which is just barely not enough to be able to jump off the top to kind of clip to the wall. But by timing it with the bomb explosion, that's just enough to get us over that last bit and into the ceiling. That lets us skip right to the dungeon boss without having to navigate the rest of the dungeon. So we essentially do a third of the dungeon 3 times, and then we finish the dungeon instead of actually doing the rest of the dungeon, which brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah,
and now we're in the
Seceon didn't manage to get their manipulation through to the Dark Nut. It's pretty it's not that big of a deal for them because they're just going to go out of their way now and pick up this this chest. They had the opportunity to skip it if they got a perfect manipulation through to the Dark Nut. Nitros has to be super careful right now. They are on a course
They're
path.
very low on health,
Like,
yeah.
You want to get lowered down to low health here, but you don't want to die. Like a comfortable amount of health is 1 heart, because you can easily take that amount of damage just after the dungeon before we get to the place where we want to do the death abuse. But on a quarter heart, there's a couple of enemies we're going to be going by even after this fight that if they kill you, that's a big time loss.
Yeah, for sure. Plus Mazal kind of has some weird hitboxes with his hands, and sometimes you can just get bonked without really intending it. And now we're both in the Mazal fight. One thing I wanted to talk about is we got these pillars in here, and it's sort of random where they show up. But the big thing is that they cannot be in the same place twice. So you can use that information to kind of keep in mind, like, okay, well, it was here last time, so it's not going to be there next time, so I'm going to start on this pillar instead and kind of dig my way around to try to find that eyeball pillar.
Yeah. We have the decomp for this section of the game, so we know the function that's used to determine it, and it's basically perfectly random. It's a pure 1 in 5 because there's 6 pillars and it can't be the same one. So yeah, in the later rounds, there's a perfect 1 in 5 between them, which pillar it is, except for we're dealing with computers, and computers aren't perfect when it comes to floating point precision, and we get some inaccuracy when it comes to that. So like when you go like 8 decimal places in, it starts getting like a slight bias towards the right side pillars over the left side. Such an insignificantly small percentage, but like it is technically better for you to try testing the right side first.
Alright, so getting out of Fortress of Winds, we're now in the Tingle side mission. So this is the reason for these kinstones. Now, one fun fact about this is that this is not a required part of a casual playthrough of the game. We're getting the magical boomerang right now, which is not needed to beat the game. However, it is needed for us to be able to do all of the cool things. And we'll see a lot of those cool things here in a minute. So going through, getting all 4 of the tingles to fuse together, we're going to get the item, and that's kind of why we're doing these, just like kind of going all over the place, navigating a bunch of different parts of the world to get these fusions.
Yeah, Nitros is going to go for Eslo buffer here. They're going to hold select to talk to Eslo, and if you keep the button held down and then close the text box, it always advances 2 frames. So using using that, you can keep looking at the bomb to see what frame the bomb is during its animation. You know exactly how many frames until the bomb explodes, and you just look for a visual cue of the right frame that you're looking for. Yeah, learning Eslo buffer, you basically have to learn all of the frames of the bomb explosion as it's just about to explode, and know the one that you're supposed to be hitting. And then, yeah, once you finish talking to Eslo, you're just holding up the whole time, and then Link walks into the doorway and opens the door the same frame the bomb explodes. And it prevents Link from walking into the doorway, but the door gets open, and then we can get Ocarina Glitch off of it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the Ocarina Glitch is needed here because one of the properties of getting Ocarina Glitch is it freezes time. The first instance that you get it, and with the time frozen state, it lets us get close to that portal without it running the function to determine and for it to tell the game, I'm the closest portal to Link. Because that value never gets set, the game thinks that the closest portal to Link is at the coordinate 0, 0 in the top left corner of the screen. So when we jump onto the portal, it tries to send Link in that direction, which is what lets us jump up onto the cliff. And Seceon did a different setup for the death abuse there. That doesn't involve having to use Eslo and determine what frame you're on. You just hold button inputs at specific times, and yeah, it's always frame perfect. And you just buffer the inputs. You can just press and hold at specific timings, and it turns what would be a frame perfect timing into something that's just 100% consistent and you can do every time, just based on muscle memory.
All right, and then we did see we picked up that Nitros picked up a second fairy. Seceon's going to be getting the second fairy here in a second as well, and that's going to be because there's a second death abuse to open another door but not go in it. So essentially the exact same thing, but this second door is going to be at Lake House, at Lake Hylia, and that's going to let us get into Temple of Droplets without needing the flippers. That tree that drops the fairy has about a 1 in 16 chance of giving us a blue kinstone instead, Myth?
Oh, it's any kinstone, but
okay.
It's actually, I'm not sure. I've only ever seen a blue kinstone from it, but as far as I was aware, it could be any kinstone.
Yeah, but it's like a 1 in 16 chance to drop a kinstone instead of a fairy. And then there's a backup tree that we can go to, which is in the area of the other 4 trees that Seceon's going to be running to here in a minute. And that tree also has the 1 in 16 chance of dropping a kinstone. So if you're really unlucky, like me, I've gotten this 2 separate times where both trees drop the kinstone. You have to go to a third backup tree, and that one guaranteed drops a fairy if all else fails. Thankfully, neither of our runners had to deal with those shenanigans today.
I think the first time someone ever told me, oh, by the way, the backup, like, if this was an older route that didn't require, like, having to do the Lon death abuse. The only death abuse we needed to do was the one at Lake Door. But yeah, I didn't have a fairy at that moment, and someone was like, oh yeah, the backup is if you bonk into that tree, you'll get a fairy. And I bonked into it, and it gave me a kinstone. I was like, what? And then they were like, oh, there are other trees in these other places. And every tree I went to gave a kinstone. I got 3 kinstones in a row. The first time I ever tried to get backup kinstones, and I was like, backup fairies, I was like, I don't believe you. And I've looked into it, and I was like, yeah, I was that unlucky.
Yep.
Nitros pushed the block in the wrong direction, so they have to reload the room.
We do love our ice block pushing. And ice physics. Ice physics are notoriously rough in Minish Cap. It takes, like, movement momentum and then cranks it up to 11. You can kind of slide around the corners of things, and it looks like you're not moving at all, and then suddenly you come out with, like, the speed of a 737. So it's jarring when you're moving around on ice if you're not careful. Nitros did just get that big key, though, so now we're going to be using the boomerang to skip the big key door. So the boomerang coming back to us, and Myth, I'm going to actually let you explain this, because I have a theory on why it works, but I don't know if it's right.
So, the magic boomerang, when it's mid-air and you're holding the button to be using the magic boomerang, the designers wanted it so that the player could control the movement of the magic boomerang, but they didn't want Link walking around whilst that happened. So they made a function that stops Link from moving, but it does some other stuff. And they really didn't think that through when they implemented it, because they didn't test it on what would happen when you did it as you're being forced to move because of like a cutscene or something like opening the door. When you open a big door, it opens the big door and then it forces Link. It locks Link into a movement animation to move to the next room. If we have the boomerang out in the air and we're holding the button for it, this function just interrupts the check that's done to get Link to the right position to trigger the transition to the next room. So we kind of bypass that transition, and then by the time we go past it, we let go of the boomerang or whatever, we've gone past that transition and we're just out of bounds, past the lower end of that doorway in just like the lower void of like the out of bounds. And just from there, we can just do movement to get to the next room that we want to go to, which is right outside of Blue Chew. There is a similar thing that happens with the lantern for slightly different reasons, but the same outcome. Unfortunately, we can't get the lantern without either the flippers or the magic boomerang to do this trick. But yeah, using the magic boomerang, we can skip doing the entire flippers sequence. But yeah, that's not the biggest thing that we're going to be doing here in Droplets. Nitros is now setting up Octoclip. Ice physics, as we've established, is very broken, and Nitros is going to put a pot into this spot and then do a sub-pixel setup here.
There's the new setup. And we did it! Yeah, new setup!
Right.
Shout out to Myth197 if you've ever heard of him. He's a pretty cool guy. He came up with that.
Yeah, apparently he's got loads of tutorials and people use them to learn the game.
Yeah.
I should check one of them out sometime.
Honestly, your tutorials are like 90% of the reason I was able to pick up the run again as quickly as I did. Invaluable. So
okay, Octo's going a bit pear-shaped here. It's going to be yeah, I don't think the manipulation is going to work now for Nitros.
Nope. That is all over the place right now. So we're going to see what happens. So that what was going on is we have Octoclip, which is a part of another RNG manipulation. So the movement that Nitros is doing to get into the boss fight with this weird like backwards diagonal roll is part of movement to make sure that Octo does what we want him to do, so that we can guarantee 3 rock shots on the last cycle of this boss. This RNG manip has kind of gone a little pear-shaped, so we'll find out at this point if we get lucky or if we lose time. So
it's basically
with this,
pure luck at this point.
Yeah.
There is a 25%, about a 25% chance that Octo shoots 3 rocks in a row, and they didn't get that.
Yeah. So they're going to shoot a rock, ink, and then the ink's going to come out. So this attack loses 30 seconds. Pure RNG at this point. And this is why finding the RNG manip for this boss was previously thought like unthinkable, not possible. There's too many things shuffling RNG. But the Minish Cap community are a bunch of mad lads, and they figured it out. But this attack loses about 30 seconds, and now we'll see. Okay, shoots the rock, shoots another one, gets a 1 ink, which is a likely outcome if you miss the manip. And that loses 30 seconds, but it has the chance to suck you up again for another ink attack, losing another round of 30 seconds.
Yeah, Seceon is going for Octo Clip. They're going for the older setup. The older setup relies on a longer gap between you timing your roll input. There's a bigger gap, so it's harder to time. The newer one, it is literally perfect. But yes,
they did get it. I did not see how many attempts. Okay, so third try, they might be able to stay within the manip. It might not be too many attempts. I'm not used to that movement off to the left, though.
I think they, I think that changes the RNG too much to work at this point, and they didn't do the dash. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to continue this as a manipulation, but they will still be able to get a fast 5. Yeah, and then... no,
right, so we'll have to see.
I don't think that would be reliable rocks to use to judge what RNG they're on. I think RNG's changed too much to make that viable.
For sure.
They can try at this point and hope that they lock into the right range.
Definitely. Sometimes you just kind of get that sense of like where you think the RNG might be, and you can just kind of like divine intervention yourself back onto the right RNG value. So we'll see what happens on Seceon's screen. Nitroz going to the Sanctuary for the first time, way later than we normally would. So we're actually doing 2 separate fusions here.
I think the RNG was just past where it needed to be. So they did a couple rolls, but really, the RNG values, the 20 RNG values after the range we're aiming to hit, which is only a range of like 5 different RNG values. None of the ones afterwards result in a 0 ink ever. So you do have to completely shuffle RNG as much as you can, because it's completely guaranteed if you slightly mess up the manip so that you're only 1 or 2 RNG values off, you're guaranteed never going to be good.
2 ink on this one, so that's losing a full minute of time just from RNG.
So Octo has a lot of different actions it can do during this stage. It can either shoot 3 rocks, shoot 2 rocks, or do a suck attack. Now, Octo behaves the same way that like the Mazal pillars do, where it will never do the same action twice in a row. And when we go into the final stage for the first time, its value for whatever the last action was the 2 rock, despite it never having happened because it's the first cycle of that last phase of the fight. But yeah, that's why we never ever see Octo shoot 2 rocks and then decide to go with whatever the next action, like decide to start making up what its next action is going to be. So the only options for what it's going to do is do a suck attack and then ink, or fire 3 rocks in a row. But yeah, when in subsequent cycles, you absolutely do see sometimes it will shoot 2 rocks and then it will roll RNG to decide what it's going to do after that point.
So now on Nitro's screen, we're getting into Palace of Winds, which is the last main dungeon before Dark Hyrule Castle, where the final boss is. And this is a pretty cool dungeon. It's got some of my favorite music in the game, and we do skip almost the entirety of this dungeon with the various tricks that we do. So this dungeon in particular is a pretty exciting watch in my opinion. And Seceon in the Sanctuary doing the fusions to be able to do the copy ability that we skipped over.
Yeah, a big point of this route as well has been to delay upgrading the sword until now, because we can get 2 upgrades for the price of 1.
Yeah. And we're, I want to say we're very close to, we're so close, we're like right there to being able to just skip these fusions entirely. The only real roadblock, to my knowledge, is that block that Nitros had to push, where you need your clones for that. I remember seeing like Myth and a bunch of other people just trying to figure out some way to get around that, and just not finding a way to make the game budge.
Yeah, that's one of the game's holy grails. When we get that, we save minutes. We really do. It will be a huge time save if that ever gets discovered. But it has been one of those tricks that people have been looking for a very long time. Tompa said that they looked to try and skip it when they made their first TAS in 2011. So, people have been looking for it for 13 years, at least. Now, I'm sure if you go even further back to the first people that tried speedrunning the game, people like Greener Link, they made Dungeon IO TASes back in 2008. I'm sure they even tried to do something in that first room to break it, so...
Absolutely. But at the same time, finger the monkey's paw curls down, is if we find a way to get past that block, we then have to do Georg without copying. Oh. And it is possible, because other categories do it.
My beloved.
No!
It's going to turn into Fire Rod %.
Yeah. We're just going to find a way to natively put Fire Rod into the game, and I don't know if the world's ready for that, Myth. So maybe this is a glitch that's better left undiscovered. So something else we saw on Nitro's screen right now was kind of some very precise positioning by falling off a cliff with the bow out, and then kind of using that bow being held out to slide over to position ourselves just right to slip through the gap between like the wall and the stairs. It's called Stair Clip. It lets us run past a lot of the dungeon and skip needing to get the power bracelets. It skips some other sections of the dungeon. It's great.
And it's pretty easy as well.
It's so easy. Once you understand how it works and what like pixel positioning you're looking for, it's almost free.
You just hold buttons. That's it. There's no tight timing or anything. There's no enemies you have to bully into place.
Oh yeah, you don't have to get an ocarina glitch off of a dying spiked shell turtle.
Yeah.
Seems specific, but we used to have to do that, and I'm so glad we don't anymore. It used to be a one-shot trick, and if you failed it, you lost, 30 minutes?
There is another ocarina glitch that you can still do here, but then no one's going to be going for it.
Looks like Nitros just went for some swag points, jumping through the air to catch the key mid-air. So now we're getting, here's the big key, and we're going to use that not to go through the boss door, like some sort of casual. We're going to be using it to skip the boss door, like some kind of cool speedrunner person. And this is going to let us skip the whole, the last section of the dungeon, which has a lot of winding rooms, a lot of enemies to deal with, a Dark Nut fight, and we're just going to run on air and go all the way to the Georg boss fight.
Yeah, who even likes the second half of this dungeon?
I really want to. It's the best I got.
It's not great. We do it in glitchless, and it's a really brutal section. Lots of enemy RNG.
Yeah. So the Georg fight is really interesting. I find it to be very polarizing. where as long as you've got semi-consistent movement, the fight is relatively consistent, and it feels great, looks cool, it's awesome. But this fight can very quickly go off the rails. There's a lot you have to dodge around and deal with. You've got these light balls coming in. That blue Georg kind of gets more and more aggressive throughout the phases. This fight can get messy really fast if you're not on it. Nitroz so far having a pretty decent go of it. But now we're in the infamous third phase, and we'll see how that works out. Sometimes it can just dash right through out of nowhere. So there he comes. But very nice.
Yeah, that section was a heavy RNG section, and they got perfect luck there and managed to execute on that.
Yeah, very clean. And now this is just the winning lap. Was able to get, so that's what we're talking about, Copulus Georg. Imagine having to do that every single time. It's a relatively precise positioning to line yourself up to be able to hit all three of those eyes with close enough timing to where the game thinks you hit them at the same time. And you're able to then not have to do the copies in order to fight the boss.
So you are aware, right, that you can use bombs on... like you just simultaneously release a spin attack at the same time, like depending, like in a certain window when a bomb explodes, and you can hit any eye pattern regardless of like without clones. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's doing Georg without clones isn't as awful as it sounds. Like, it's not great, but it's doable, and you don't just lose 15 seconds every time you get bad luck.
That is good to know. I guess I'll keep that in mind if the Holy Grail is discovered and I'm not allowed to do fusions before the end of the game.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. It's I can't even begin to think of the method in which we're going to skip that block.
Absolutely. So the fight that Nitroz just finished right now, we have Seceon going into the Gleerock fight. But the fight that Nitroz just finished was supposed to happen much earlier in the game. However, because we never did any fusions, the flag never got set to create that fight. So now that we've done the fusions and we're on our way to basically the final boss, the game's like, oh shoot, I forgot. Here, fight. And it throws the enemies at us, and now we get all of the essential lore, where Vadi, who was a child, and because of the magic of the wish hat that Eslo made, turned into a scary sorcerer man, who turned the man who was not a hat into a hat. And now that the hat, who is not a hat but is now a hat, is helping us as a hat to try to get himself turned into not a hat. And that is the true moral of the story.
That is the meaning of Christmas.
It is. It is. Happy almost Christmas, everybody, for those who celebrate. And for those who don't celebrate, happy almost December 25th.
Yeah, we've got our last period of downtime, for Nitroz at least, before the end of the run. Gonna have Dark Harrow Castle, the hardest part of the whole run. Like, there are sections of the run that like rival it in terms of difficulty, but the Dark Harrow Castle is just a bit relentless, and also right at the very end of the run. So so many good runs can end up dying here.
For sure, and it's a massive dungeon. So for those of us in the chat who have played this game casually and are familiar with how large this dungeon is, get ready for us to not play any of it. We will be doing everything in our power to navigate this dungeon as little as possible. Our only goal is to get 4 small keys, get the big key, get to Vadi, beat game. That's it. We're not really going anywhere else in this dungeon, so we're going to be utilizing a lot of the Ocarina glitch to skip pretty much all of it. And Seceon right now is right behind them on their way to get to Dark Hyrule Castle as well.
Also, there was a cutscene earlier on in the run which we just skipped, but yeah, the king was there and then just like disappears in a puff of smoke and is replaced with Vati. We do see a cutscene earlier where Vati possesses the king. That we skipped that cutscene by doing the chrono clip earlier in the run. So it's always super fun when the story of the game just gets completely confused and broken because of the glitches that we do to skip progression.
Yeah. And get to that part of the game and he's like, oh my gosh, he was the king the whole time? Who are you? Now we're doing cutscene walking on Nitroz's screen, so we're essentially overlapping triggers. So Eslo wants to talk to us, and at the same time we saved the advisor man, and then at the same time that the advisor man wants to talk to us, we then save the guard. And at the same time that the guard wants to talk to us, we save the other guard. It allows us to keep walking as these cutscenes are trying to trigger, so that we can kind of get through that room much faster.
I'm very surprised Nitroz got that. They were doing a sub-pixel manipulation, and the position they got, they just needed to use the sword and walk into the right position, but they thought that they had the visual lineup for one of the positions that doesn't work, or in fact the only position that doesn't work, and you need to do a diagonal boot bonk to fix your sub-pixels to be on the right position so that you can do it. And well, they did that correction on a position that they didn't need to do the correction for, but it worked, and they got the clip first try. And best of all, the moblin didn't get in the way. That moblin is awful and always does his best to try and get in the way. But if you're fast enough, you and lucky enough, you can avoid getting the moblin hit us. And if the moblin hits us, it messes up our position setup.
It really does, and I'm sorry that I cut you off there. I've never seen that tile movement. Because Nitroz went through that little tile puzzle, and I've never seen somebody move through that. I never considered that. That feels so much nicer.
I swear everyone does different solutions in there.
Really?
I've seen so many different... I've seen basically every single run of this game ever, and...
That's true.
Not,
You've looked into every possible
no one ever does anything consistently with those puzzles. It's always different.
Yeah, I do the roll on the third row from the top, and then I go and do like that wiggle, up, right, down, right, up, right, down, right. That's what I do.
Yeah. I have to turn my brain off going into that and just do whatever my muscle memory says, because I've seen it too many different times. If I think about it too much, I'm going to mess it up.
You start merging timelines on Myth stream.
Oh god, this happens to me all the time because of all of the different routes. I've run every category, so every time I go into a room, it's like, okay, is this the any % version, or is this the glitchless version, or is this the 100% version, or is this the fire rod version, or is this the rando version? Why am I opening chests? No, stop it.
Where am I? That's the curse. That's the curse. But right now we're kind of in the last, home stretch. There it is. Those are the words I was trying to find. The home run, stretch, leap, jump, forward, roll. Where we're just trying to get the small keys.
End of 9th innings and the
touchdown.
I don't know baseball things.
We're doing great, everybody.
They're gonna punt it. Oh, they're going for the 3 points.
Hat trick. But now we're just getting the 4 small keys that we need to get the big key. That's the only thing we're doing here. And there's a couple different ways to do it. So we might also see a difference in routes between Seceon and Nitroz as well. Because there's 2 different small keys that are roughly the same amount of time. I think it's someone explained to me it was like a 6-second difference between going one route versus the other. So we might see a difference in which fourth small key each runner gets. So I look forward to that possibility.
Yeah, there is an RNG manipulation you can be doing in the part of the run that Nitros is currently in. They're not going for it. It just makes the Dark Nut fight on the left-hand side consistent, but also makes the skeletons, the Stalfos, go into out of the way so they don't bully you whilst you're trying to do the trick. It's not required. You can go and try and do it, but you're relying on luck at that point that the enemies leave you alone.
And there's so many enemies. It's 4 of the red skeleton boys who throw the bones at you. There's also like 2 of the wall masters that'll drop down and try to grab you. And there's this giant red fire bar spinning around. So you have to... Oh, okay. So Nitro's going in anyways. They're doing it. So they're shooting the 4 eyeballs, and they're going to use the damage from the fire bar from a beautiful... Wow, that couldn't have been cleaner. And they're going to use that angle storage that got set. We used to see it from them jumping out of a hole, but we see it here of that diagonal angle stored because of the fire bar to be able to push a block diagonally and get that 4th key. And so now with the 4th key, we are in yet another RNG manipulation. This one is for all the biscuits. It's for the Dark Nut fight and into the Vati fight. The first 2 phases of Vati are included in the RNG manip because Vati is a very difficult boss with a lot of RNG going on with it, and using this manip helps to get rid of that, as well as that Dark Nut fight can be so nasty without the proper RNG. So this movement is to set it up to make them specific. Now, one exciting thing about this part of the run, too, is there's about 101 different manips out there for this part of the game. Like, we talked about the tile maze of, like, everybody does it differently. It's the same way here. So we could see very different manips from both players. We probably saw a different manip from every player throughout this tournament. But the whole goal is always going to be defeat the Dark Nuts as easy as possible, and then have the best Vati fights of your life. So we'll see if these manips get carried through and how far they're able to hold them. But it always starts with that the Black Armor Dark Nut dashing down, getting that second red Dark Nut to do that attack, getting him from perfect.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Nitros is going for El Clasico Vlak. Like this was a real old one. Like the Vlak's one's been improved since then to be a so you don't need to get that shell drop. But like Nitros going all the way back to that one. Now, like, as you said, that like there's so many different versions. A lot of them share the same RNG at certain transition points. So like when going into Vati 1, like 5 or 6 of them all enter Vati 1 on the same RNG, but then they just have like different they're basically branch points depending on what luck you get in the Vati fight. It's not exactly like, it's kind of difficult to nail this absolutely perfect every single time. So there's a range of different outcomes that Vati can do. So at this point here that Nitros is doing, so they're going to be gust jarring towards Vati. Then Vati does something different here. They're going to teleport. Teleporting down isn't something that I'm too familiar with. This whole this doesn't look right.
RNG's gone. One little mistake can completely throw off an RNG manip, and so now Nitro is just essentially at this point doing a casual fight against Vati and hoping for good RNG. And the teleporting around is the #1 thing we want to limit, and the main reason we do the RNG manips is because sometimes he can really be a son of a gun. and he'll dash around with them teleports, and we won't be able to catch him. So now we're in Vadi 2, and this fight...
I desperately want Seceon to open his Kinstone menu at the end of this run, because he has picked up, like, 4 different Kinstones just based off of RNG in all of the Darknet fights. It's really dumb how many he's picked up in this run.
He'll just convert this into a 100% run. We'll do all the Kinstones.
I wish this was one of my Hundo runs, just getting free Kinstones.
And Seceon as well, going with the other route to get the other 4th key.
The Skeleton Jamboree, as I heard some people call it.
That's so much better than Firebar Room. Alright, so now Seceon going in with their own Darknut and Vadi Manip, so we'll see how that goes for them. Nitroz right now trying to hold it down in Vadi 2. This fight gets out of hand so fast. You've got these purple spike things getting thrown everywhere. Rocks are falling down. He's throwing lightning balls at you. He's always going to be in your way. He's so much larger than he looks. He's bouncing you around. The Manip really helps to minimize the pain of this phase, but it's just so much. We do get through that second phase, though, and you notice that he was always doing a spin attack. So, if I remember correctly from the great teachings of the wise sage Myth 197 on twitch.tv, when you do a spin attack into Vadi 2, it's instead of dealing damage, it just sets his HP to a certain amount. So it was always enough for the first 2 cycles to get him into the next cycle, and then for that 3rd cycle, you do the spin attack, and then just hit him one more time to kill him. Is that correct? Did I do it? Did I win?
Yeah, it's specifically the spin attack when you have clones. For some reason.
Got it.
A regular spin attack doesn't.
Weird.
Link's spin attack doesn't, but it's the clone spin attack. Very weird. I don't know why it does that.
That is so weird. I'd be really curious to find out if I had the brains to understand
why the code was written to do that. But I've seen the lines of code that does it, and yeah, it literally just says, like, make health equal to, and then it's like, I don't know what the intention was here, or why did they do that? But
so
yeah.
Weird. I'm so curious about that. We'll never know. It's one of those mysteries we'll never be able to solve, because it was put there. It clearly states it. But who knows? Nitroz going into Vadi 3, Seceon going into Vadi 1. And it looks like they're also doing their Manip, so we'll see how they hold it down. I'm hoping for a good Manip here. Looking good so far. Okay. I don't think that's intentional.
This is
but
a
maybe
Manip.
Okay.
I've never seen this Manip before, but like, it looked completely new, but was doing outcomes that they were expecting. At least at first, I think it's completely apart now. But like, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, it looks like they held their Manip for about as long as Nitroz did, but it was definitely a different Manip. Nitroz now finishing out the first part of Phase 3, just getting rid of these arms, using the boomerang to kind of lock that eyeball down as much as possible, trying to get rid of it. And now we're in the last part of the last phase of the last boss of the game. And this is all about just staying lined up with him. It's all about your horizontal position. It's tennis! But now it's like 4v4 and 5 tennis. He's got 4 little eyes and the one big eye, but it's only 4 tennis balls, so it's like 4 to 5 something.
How come Mario gets tennis games when Link's the one that does tennis all the time?
I know. Put Link in a Mario tennis game, but give him an empty bottle instead. Do it, Nintendo. But this last phase, it's all about lining up with that horizontal position. That way Vadi knows it's time to play tennis. And we just knock it back, beat him up. Nitroz on time with a 131. Maybe it was a 130 with high seconds.
Flat, yeah.
Yeah.
Like 131 flat. That is GG's to Nitroz. They have won the lower bracket.
Yep. It was a really strong run. And Seceon, honestly, with everything that happened in Sesion's run, having to go back for that extra fairy and then getting the 2 ink and getting to this point of the run at 1:31.5, incredible comeback. Like, I may not be the guru on what all of the timings should be on your clean run, but this feels like a really strong comeback from somebody who had some really unfortunate occurrences earlier in the run.
Yeah, they said that they felt pretty upset about having such a good swamp and fortress section after what happened in Cave of Flames, but
that's how it is. It's the inevitable trade-off.
They did the run back.
They did. So huge GG's Nitros. Congrats on that victory. Seceon now going into the Vadi 3. They'll be finishing up pretty soon here as well. And we'll see, are we doing post-run chitty chats? Interviews?
We'll see if we can get our runners in. For an interview after the race they've just done.
I think no matter what, both runners should be very happy with their performance. Hello, Nitros. GG.
Welcome in.
Welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, how's the new Octo clip?
Well, it definitely went pretty good this run at least, but yeah, I don't know. Overall, I would say it's probably an improvement, but you'll still have some runs, I guess, where it just doesn't work, but thankfully this was not one of them, I guess. That was nice.
It's definitely exciting to see the new strat that was just put out into the community to be demonstrated in a tournament race. So appreciate you for that, because I know you're just going for the style points and showing off to the crowd. Honestly, though, well done on your 131. It's a really solid run.
Yeah, overall, I feel like the early game went quite well until I messed up the Armos sandwich and Fortress of Winds because I rolled too early or something before Link turned left. And after that, I made all kinds of mistakes. But
I think you picked up the skull.
Yeah, because he didn't face left yet.
You were too far right. That's right.
But I hit everything that mattered mostly first try. I guess. Octoclip, all the OGs really went fine.
Also, welcome in Seceon, GG's.
Hi.
Welcome in, GG.
GG's, Nitros.
GG's.
Yeah, I think the big thing that was unfortunately the fairy at the end of Cave of Flames. I didn't quite get a good look at it. I saw you were trying to grab the second one with the bottle when you walked into it. What happened?
Kind of dodged the bottle.
Yeah, that was unlucky. I should have tried to get the fairy with the first fairy with the bottle, so then if that missed, I could try with the second one.
Right.
But I didn't thought that the second one will run away from me and then go straight into me. That was weird, I guess. But yeah, this run was super good. Besides that and 2 ink Octo. The rest was really solid. Got a couple of goals and stuff.
For sure, honest, amazing comeback, you know, with those two things going on, and then still ending at a 134. Like,
yeah, that's like
really good.
Combined 3 minutes between those two mistakes. But yeah, things happen in races, so I'm not that mad. I played pretty well, and like, even if I PV, Nitros could have win because they did a better run than my PV. But I'm glad that at least I could like keep it going after the mistakes, even though I was like kind of mad and wanted to forfeit.
Well, you stuck it out to the end, and yeah, it's a tournament. You never know. You gotta stick with it, no matter what the like mistakes you might make. It can swing around at the end.
I was really low on health on body 2 actually, so if I had died there, it probably could have been really close.
Body 2 and Mazal both. I was nervous for you.
So Masal, I wasn't really nervous in the fight itself, but I was nervous after the fight for avoiding like the enemies before the LLR OG, because I just overthought the taking damage part and took damage too early compared to when I needed to. So then I tried to do a different strat for the second cycle and faced the wrong way when shooting the bow, which ruined everything. So yeah, then I was left with quarter of a heart basically, and it was kind of scary, I guess. But I mean, in the fight itself, you should never take damage after that. The first hand of the second cycle, it's kind of, you really shouldn't take damage. But yeah, the Octoroks after can.
Those
definitely what's scary.
They're so unpredictable. I've seen, I think it was Martin lost a run because they were on a quarter heart, and one of the Octos moved into the like position that they were going to roll through it, and then it changed direction and moved to where his roll landed, and it invulnerability ended. He took damage and died.
Yeah, it's also happened like where you shoot the cane to create the thing in the hole, and you get shot by the Octorok while you're in the animation.
You're just watching it happen. There's nothing you can do.
Iconic clip on twitch.tv/Toadswoot.
Oh, also, I think I got like a weird thing with RNG entering body. Like, it has happened to me twice.
Bombs. So you got the shell drop.
No, but like shell, and the third one dropped me nothing, I think. And this time, the third one dropped me a rupee. It was like, I don't know if it was because
I'm not sure what inventory difference would have resulted in a different drop table, so maybe the RNG was different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna clip it and ask because it's the second time that it happens, so I don't know.
But when,
I don't know if
on the way to the boss key, if it's the very last pot, if that's a shell drop, that's because that's because you're out of bombs. You're on 0 bombs.
Oh yeah, I know that, but like, even I don't know if that messes up the RNG.
It doesn't. The only item drop that changes RNG after it's spawned is Kinstones, shellstone. Even when you pick them up, it doesn't change your RNG.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna clip it and then ask because it was weird.
I think that was weird.
Only thing that I can feel is that I did like 3 cane shots and then I had to move and do another one, but I don't know if that.
Nah, definitely not.
It doesn't make sense to.
I think. I don't know, that like the darknets there, because I think in your manip you do like 2 slashes or something after killing the second one or something like that, and then like jump over the dude. It's probably like somewhere there where you got like some unlucky timing, if I had to guess.
No, but like in manip, the first Darknut drops a shell and it didn't drop the shell, so like RNG was messed up before killing the first Darknut. That's why. I think it was messed up like even before entering Darknut, because I think one Kiron moved like super weird. but I don't know. I'm gonna check it.
Oh yeah,
See
that
what
can maybe do something.
Yeah, but it was weird. But at least I know how to do no manip. So
Yeah. My
It was
minute
rough.
died on value 1, I think, because on the last or second to last cycle where you're slashing, I think I slashed him too quickly. So it didn't
Oh.
take the last slash. I would add like an extra cycle or whatever. So yeah, kind of an L on my part.
yeah, things that happens sometimes in races, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. GG's Nitros. Good luck on going against. I don't know if it's decided or if the loser between Myth and Darky.
It's we have agreed on Sunday is going to be mine and Darky's match, and the winner of that match will be going into the grand finals, and the loser will be playing against Nitros in the. It will actually the lower bracket is not over because there's the lower bracket final, which is going to be that match, and then the winner of that match will be the other person in the grand finals. So we really only have 3 matches left in the tournament, with a fourth if there is a bracket reset in the grand finals.
I'm looking forward to that match on Sunday. I put myself down as a commentator, so if that gets restreamed, I'm available for that one too.
It will be restreamed, I promise.
Oh, fantastic. I'll be here.
Nice.
I can't wait.
No matter what.
All right. Well done, though, runners. Fantastic all around. A lot of great execution. Cool stuff shown off on stream. I learned new things. 10 out of 10 all around.
Yeah, thank you for hosting the races. Always fun to see races. I after the mistake in Cave of Flame, I actually watched the race in the second screen, so it's fun always to watch the races.
All right then, I guess that's a good moment, or as good as ever a moment for me to take over. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Big shoutouts to our races, to Nitros and to Seceon, and of course, big shoutout to our comms, to Drakus and to Myth. And yeah, basically everything said. Because on Sunday we're gonna be back with more TMC with the upper bracket final between Myth and Darky. 2 people that have only very recently started picking up Minish Cap, never played before, basically. No, just kidding. Both been around for like 20 years. I hope you all had a great time. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a nice evening. See you soon. See you on Sunday.